This is video 10, and today we'll be discussing mechanisms of speciation and evolution. Another production by Gabriel Trevino Jr., me. Oh, someone that's me. I don't know why I say that. And there are 5 agents of evolutionary change. The first one we'll be discussing is mutation. Mutation is the changing of the structure of a gene, and that results in multiple forms that may be transmitted down generations and can change and adapt to new circumstances, and that's why it produces different outcomes, and that's why we mutate and mutation happens. And that happens when there's an alteration in a single base of units in DNA. And that could happen when there's a deletion, insertion, or rearrangement of sections within DNA, the coding process. The second part we'll be talking about of the 5 agents is non-random mating. And within non-random mating, this occurs when the probability that 2 individuals in a population will mate. It is not the same for all possible pairs of individuals, but non-random mating is when it's like almost assigned, I guess, in a sense, that you're gonna mate with what you are and the opposite sex. The next topic will be gene flow, and within gene flow, I think it's also known as gene migration or allele flow, and it is the transfer of genetic variation from one population to another. And the fourth topic will be genetic drift. And within genetic drift, that is the variation in the relative frequency of different genotypes in a small population, owing to the chance disappearance of particular genes as individuals die or do not reproduce. So that means that if there's a certain type of generation that does not reproduce anymore, then obviously that gene flow that the genes will obviously fade off, and which will cause the genes to drift away from newer current generations of that species, and that's why you won't see the resemblance as much, which could also go part in hand with mutations, why it's all together. And last one we'll be talking about is natural selection. And within natural selection, it is the process of whereby organisms better adapted to their environment tend to survive and produce more offspring. So it's like, it was just that natural selection, and it's like the strong survive and the weak die off, or like old. And that's when, like, it's like food chain, the higher up animals, humans are at the top, will prey on lower things that we can always kill. And like that's why in the wild, like lions we eat cantaloupe, because it's just the food chain stuff. And natural selection within the mating process is alpha will always mate in a sense with the females that they can. And now we will move on to the species concept. The species concept is organisms that belong to the same species if they can interbreed and produce an offspring, then that technically means they're part of the same species. And speciation is the process by which new species form. But this occurs when in a group of species become reproductively isolated and diverge.